Hi, friends, and happy Pride. I know I'm late. It's near the end of June. But I mean, in my town, the Pride Parade is in July, so maybe this will still be helpful. I'm going to do the obligatory thing, it seems, this year and talk about the Straights at Pride discourse. So, this is a discourse that comes up every year, and it's a little bit astroturf. It's a little bit young queers figuring themselves out and figuring out, boundaries. Um, and being an old queer and one who for a long time didn't reckon with her queerness. I was on the periphery. I was the straight friend at Pride. I thought I was for a long time. And that's the thing, you don't actually know. I mean, okay, most of my friends knew before I did, but you don't necessarily know from anything but being in someone's shoes what who they are. So let's not, let's acknowledge that there's a bit of squishiness to the whole, who is or isn't straight and queer. Sometimes that line is queerer than you think. My friend Finn just released a delightful video talking about that aspect of this discourse. But what I want to do, I want to talk a little bit um, about this whole idea of belonging at Pride and these kinds of things. And I am going to be a bit of a try hard metaphor person. So I do believe that basically everybody but corporations and cops and homophobes belong at Pride. Everybody who isn't actively hostile to us or exploiting us belongs at Pride. But I think it is important to think about who is the guest here. So, the queer community, the whole LGBT alphabet, everybody who isn't straight cis het thing, we are kind of a big extended family. I mean, one of the old euphemisms when people didn't, couldn't, we're trying to quietly say, are you or are you not? They'd ask, are you family? Is he family? And this idea of family, like this has gone back generations. Oscar Wilde is the sort of person who would be asking, is he family? Oh, yeah, he's family. So, like, we are a family, but we're not, it's a complicated family. um, there's people you're closer to, there's people you're less close to, there's, the aunt you don't talk to because you got non contact with because they keep being mean to your little sister. um, so yeah, it's a complicated family. Um, and Pride and any queer space is, in essence, our family home. And so if you're not family, think about how you act when you visit someone else's family home, when you are a guest in the home. Like, as a Middle Eastern person, I've taught a lot about, being a good host, being a good guest, hospitality things. And I think there's a lot of us who have raised with good ideas of how to behave when we are a guest in someone else's home. Not a guest in a hotel, that the form of guest is not be our guest. But when you are a guest in someone's home, how do you behave? And one thing, you don't go into someone else's home unless you're invited. And when it comes to Pride, the parade and those sorts of things, like the big events, are it's a house party where everyone's invited. But there are other events where you need an invitation and where you think think about who's the priority here. And the priority here is the family because, because it's our home. And the thing about the reason that we have a Pride Month is because a lot of queer folks for a lot of years weren't welcome in their own families' homes. And the world did and still does behave as if it's straight people's house and we're just living in it. And so we made for ourselves spaces that are our home, that are our space. And for Pride Month, for Pride events, you're the guest. And like we need to be able to have spaces where it's our family home and where it's our family space, where we are the priority. But as much as some of the young ones sometimes feel like we need that should be exclusively ours, it's a good thing to be able to welcome people into your home, isn't it? And to be able to share your cultural dishes and your cultural music and all the things that make you you. It's good to be able to share that, to have like a street party and welcome people in. And that's how you find more family, because sometimes the people who come to visit, oh wow, they discover that they actually want to join the family because our family is a chosen family. And it's frustrating when there are people who come and treat your home as if it is their home. Like, have you ever had that guest? I know I had someone decide they were going to stay with me for 3 weeks and rearrange my cupboards. That's why we don't like corporations at Pride and cops at Pride. Like, there are other reasons why we don't like cops at Pride, but part of it is they are the friend. Corporations are the friend who call themselves a friend, come over to your party and act as the host, and then turn around and say what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Also, there's a certain contingent of the straight world that do that. And we wish they wouldn't. We would really like you to have some thoughtfulness about how you would act as a guest in our home. I am torturing this metaphor, aren't I? But that's I think it's a thing you can understand. Like, when I didn't recognize that I was queer and I thought I was straight because it was the 90s and bi erasure was constant. um, I I always considered myself to be a guest at the queer bar, at the gay bar, a guest at the drag show. And, not act as if it was my home, not act as if I had ownership of it. I have a lot of wonderful memories from having done that for, being then able to learn about myself and eventually realize what everybody else did. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't have gotten there if I'd been like, I think I'm straight. I'm in compulsive heterosexual behavior brain, and I'm going to dictate what's right or wrong in this space. But the other thing about those times back in the late 90s is I lived in a city that was the city in the prairies, so it wasn't a huge. There was a large gay population for the size of the town of the city, but still, still, it wasn't like Calgary or like Boys Town or something. But so when Pride came around, our gay club wasn't huge. So what everybody who wasn't queer did the supportive allies, it actually was better to not go because the space was limited. So we were prioritizing the people who needed that space in that time. Because otherwise, if you went, people would end up spending the entire evening in like the line to get in because it was just like not enough space. Um, we didn't have a parade in those days. So in that case, if I had gone, I would be prioritizing myself over the people whose home it was. You know, I would be being a bad guest. But when the parade is big and open and everyone is invited, then yeah, you should totally go. You should go. Um, you should go and support us, and you know, not expect to dictate the terms of what's happening. If you see something that makes you uncomfortable, look away. Like if you see something queer that makes you uncomfortable, look away. If you see someone being queer phobic, step in. You know, that's being a good guest, being a good friend, being supportive. But there is an issue of this discourse because this manufactured discourse, the way that it was framed and the way that it so often is framed is not don't bring your straight friends to pride. It's by women, don't bring your heterosexual partners. This is a problem within the family. Um, because bi erasure is a problem within the family. I mean, it originates outside of the family because we all come into it with compulsory heterosexual notions and with, you know, the binary bullshit we've been taught and, you know, the expectation of stable um, identities, even if we know intellectually that identities are not stable, that sexuality is complicated, identity is complicated. Even if we've all known that, sometimes we can still come in with the unintended bias that we've been taught. And we end up hurting each other because what this feels like as a bi person is, can you imagine if it is your family home and you say to one of the members of the family, you can't bring your partners. Not you can't bring Bob because Bob is an asshole. Because if Bob is an asshole, you can always say, don't bring Bob. But just blanket your partners. If you have partners that look like that, you can't bring them here. What that's saying is that some members of the family are not equal to other members of the family. What you're saying, what it does is say that us bisexuals are guests in our own home, and that is that sucks. It's not nice. I mean, I'm not dating a guy because I'm not actually dating anyone, but if I were, um, I would want to be able to share this part of my life with the person I was sharing my life with. And if you say I can't do that because of something about his identity, then it's bringing biphobia, bi erasure into the family, whether it's conscious or unconscious. It's bringing uh, compulsive heterosexuality into us because you're defining me as less queer if I'm with a man than if I'm with a woman. As opposed to I am queer because I'm queer, and that doesn't change regardless of who I'm dating or not dating. And it's similar when people say that asexuals don't belong at Pride, because it's saying like they too have been expelled from the house of normative sexuality, and so you know they have been taken into to our family. They belong as much to the chosen family as the rest of us. You know, and So they are not a guest in the family home either. And there's another thing about this discourse, which is the fact that this is the discourse we're having. We're talking about who belongs in the house. And the things that we're not talking about is this house accessible? Is this house safe for everyone? Because we are having a house party when there is still an infectious pandemic raging that harms people with disabilities and people with chronic health conditions. And I don't see prides, you having mask policies because there are members of the family who are autistic and have other sensory issues, and too many prides don't have a quiet chill out space. Um, there are some prides are better at having, signs, interpreters, and that sort of things, but some do not. And so we have to think about the fact that there are members of our families who have needs that we are not addressing, and we need to be having those conversations instead of having conversations about about, saying that bi people shouldn't bring their partners or that straights shouldn't show up. No, like pride needs to be a welcoming space for anyone who will behave respectfully of the people whose home it is. Like any heterosexual person who is going to be respectful of the space, who is not coming in as a cop or a corporation, should be welcome because we need to be making allies. We need friends of the family. We are running low on friends of the family. Yeah. And we need space for people to find out that they are family. And we need to take care of the members of our family that have accessibility needs. So yeah, this is the wrong argument to be having. And is it silly to make a video about why this is the wrong argument? Well, maybe, but I hope there is some use to be had in thinking it through in this term of like the family home and the members of the family. I understand why some of the young ones who maybe don't have a lot of experience um, maybe feel they need a space that is just family. And yeah, actually, we do need spaces like that, spaces where where there are less heterosexuals and where we don't have to explain ourselves because everyone around us is also queer. Um, but Pride isn't going to be one of those spaces, not the big parade. Um, it's because it is, you know, about bringing people in. Have a party that's just for your friends and the folks that you want there. Um, if that's going to help you feel more secure, and then go out and mix with people who are not exactly like you. Mix with other parts of the family and get to know some of the friends of the family. I it's it'll be okay. There are a lot of other things in this world right now for queer folks where I don't know if it's going to be okay. There are people who will come to Pride to start shit, who are not there to be friends with the family. And we need allies and accomplices. Um, but to the straight folks, we need you to to do that in a way. Think about how to be a good friend of the family. Think about how to be a good guest. Think about how to be supportive without taking over. And the thing about the bisexual partners thing is that chances are those are the people who know best how to be a friend of the family and a guest of the family. You know, if people have invested time and effort into building a partnership with a bisexual, they know they've committed to learning how to be in queer spaces because they were in a queer relationship. On the other hand, if a bisexual woman is dating someone who would be a threat at Pride, that's her problem that she might need our support to deal with at some point because that is someone who is going to be a problem. Pride is going to be a problem for the bisexual person. And I unfortunately those relationships happen and hopefully and that person's going to need family around them when that ends. And the way to have that conversation that you might be dating someone, consider if the person you're dating is acceptable at Pride, because if you think they wouldn't be, you maybe want to rethink your relationship. We don't have that conversation by saying, "Hey, bisexual women, don't bring your straight boyfriend." That's not how that conversation starts. And the fact that the conversation is directed at bisexual women is telling. Like there's a misogyny to that because the accusation didn't come out, "Hey, straight guys, don't bring your toxic female friend." If your female friend is toxic, please don't bring her. um, it's telling that the conversation is directed at women. um, there is a like the thing is that we are family, but it is a complicated family, and misogyny is one of the unintended biases that comes into it. Um, so yeah, there are a lot of conversations we could be having about the damage that we do to each other within the family. But the thing is, when we base it around people, also straight people think that they get to have a input, and the sort of people who get annoyed at being excluded, which are exactly the people who should rethink if you're actually coming as a guest. Um, but yeah, so yeah, there are conversations that need to be had within the family, within the community, but we don't need to center those around straight people. Um, we maybe need to talk about the things that we each need to, look within if we're bringing negativity and stuff, because you know we're maybe maybe the call is coming from inside the house. And these days, as I said, there are a lot of threats, and we don't know that it's going to be okay. But we can be we can show up better for each other if we deal with our own biphobia, misogyny, transphobia, anything like that we might be bringing into the family home. You know, we that's a conversation we need to be having with ourselves. But again, talking to the straights, hi straights, yes, do feel welcome to come to Pride. Just think about how you would behave as a guest in someone else's home and take it from there. Be respectful, be kind, and Don't act like you get to make the rules of the space. 'Cause the thing is you get to make the rules every other month of the year in every other space. So, yeah, just be kind, be respectful. And I also I find it very beneficial to think in this framework of, the guest in the home. Anytime I'm entering into discourse with any other marginalized group I'm not a part of. Um, you know, when I spend time with a group of trans people, I am the guest in their home and I should behave accordingly. And I do. And that gives me the chance to learn more about myself sometimes too, because I had the experience of watching my friend Jesse's film Identities, um, which great. And I watched it with a group of non-binary people. And it was really enjoyable to experience them experiencing this piece of art about themselves, about their experience. And also me approaching it on its own terms. I found things about my own identity, to think about. Um, Ways in which, I have dualities that are not dual. And, you know, wishy-washy, mishy-mashy kind of identities and stuff. And um it was lovely again to watch it, to experience it with them and to experience Jesse's story on her terms. Um and made by all these wonderful people who some of whom I share identities with and some of whom have different from mine. Um and I wouldn't have had anywhere near as good an experience if I had decided that I should define the terms of what was correct and what on what terms this story should be told by, or this group um that I was with watching it should should be on. If I just let myself be the guest, not center myself, that's what I'm talking about, is not centering yourself. And similarly, when I spend time with um people of different cultures than mine, it, taking myself out of the center of it, thinking of myself as a guest in the home, I find to be a more rewarding experience. So yeah, happy Pride. Those are some of my rambly thoughts on Pride and straight folks and queer folks and I hopefully that made some sense. Hopefully that made some sense to you and maybe is of use to you as a way of thinking about it. Um, so yeah, uh, my city's pride will be next weekend, and I will be wearing a mask because I want to care for the members of my chosen extended family who have concerns around who are high risk, including myself. Um, and I hope you will consider doing that as well. Hopefully this was of some use to you. I would like to thank my Patreon supporters whose names you can see. And if you would like to join them, that would be delightful. There are ways to do that, and there are other ways to support me as well, all of which are in the doobly doo. So with that, happy Pride.